Hello, welcome to Daily Book Listening. The book we are discussing today is Emotional First Aids. Nowadays, things like headaches, stomachaches, colds, and fevers are becoming less of a big deal. There are specific medicines and therapies for most common physical illnesses. But what about psychological and emotional wounds, such as rejection, loneliness, frustration, guilt, failure, and low self-esteem? Do you know how to treat these? How can you lessen the pain caused by emotional fluctuations? How do you heal emotional trauma? When your emotions are sick, how do you perform first aid on yourself? Emotions can be difficult to control at times, but we can at least take some measures to prepare ourselves and mitigate the damage, preventing the problems from getting worse. Next, we will discuss some common psychological injuries and some emotional first aid techniques to cope with them. By mastering these techniques, you will no longer feel helpless and miserable when you encounter these situations again. This is what the book, Emotional First Aids, aims to tell you. That an aspirin for treating psychological ailments does exist. I am about to show it to you, and what you need to do is understand it and then use it. The author of this book is Dr. Guy Winch, an American psychologist. In 2011, he published the bestseller The Squeaky Wheel, which discusses effective methods of interpersonal communication, and it remains a bestseller on Amazon to this day. Dr. Winch earned his PhD in clinical psychology from New York University in 1991 and has been working as a private psychologist in Manhattan since 1992. During this time, he has helped patients apply emotional first aid techniques to their daily lives. In 2004, after summarizing and analyzing his years of medical experience and the cases he encountered, he published Emotional First Aids. The book became an instant hit upon its release and received wide acclaim from readers. Dr. Winch himself is a multi-talented individual with many roles. He is an expert in the field of psychological stress reduction, as well as a well-known host and author. Occasionally, he performs stand-up comedy at clubs in and around New York City. Let's return to the book, Emotional First Aids. The book lists 6 of the most common emotional crises: rejection, loneliness, loss of a loved one, guilt, and low self-esteem, and proposes different solutions for each. Let's look at them one by one. The first emotional crisis: experiencing rejection. Everyone experiences rejection in life. It can be said that rejection is everywhere, being rejected by an employer, a romantic partner, or a friend. Every rejection triggers psychological trauma, causing you instant pain. This trauma is far more severe than you imagine. Sometimes being rejected feels like a slap in the face, other times like a knife to the chest. But no matter what, it leaves a deep mark on our hearts. And for a long time, we are reluctant to revisit the moment of rejection. Every memory feels like reopening the wound and getting hurt all over again. Persuading yourself to forget the pain of rejection is difficult. You may try to use reason and logic to comfort yourself, but often you will find that these are ineffective and you still feel very hurt and unmotivated for a long time. You might think, it must be my fault. I must have done something wrong. That's why they rejected me. But is rejection your fault? All right, having said so much about the damage caused by rejection, let's talk about the treatment. Remember, if the psychological trauma caused by rejection is not dealt with in a timely manner, it can have profound negative effects on your psyche. Therapy A. Learn to argue with self-criticism. You need to know that many times, rejection has nothing to do with you. If a loved one rejects you, it's likely just because you don't have chemistry, not because there's something wrong with you. Maybe she likes men with short hair, and you happen to have long hair. If your friends go out to eat without you, you might feel betrayed, but the real reason might be that they needed to get together for something that wasn't convenient to invite you to. So, try not to attribute the reason to something personal against you, and don't engage in endless self-criticism. Overthinking will only make you feel worse. Look in the mirror and say, "It's not my fault, I look great." Therapy B. Repair your social feelings. In other words, go find a sense of belonging in another circle. When we are rejected, we feel a sting, and we hesitate to interact with that group of people again. But we must strive to overcome these fears and seek support from our social network. It can immediately remind us of our own importance. For example, you can spend a wonderful afternoon with your family or chat online with peers you don't know well. You will soon feel your sense of being needed increase, and with it, your social confidence will return. Even if you don't get over the frustration that quickly, you will feel much better. Your confidence will return, and so will your energy, which will help you regain your reason and logic to help yourself get out of the emotional low sooner. The second emotional crisis, experiencing loneliness. Loneliness is a topic for the ages. Who among us isn't lonely? Our world is shrinking. The earth has become a small village. You have so many friends on social media, and every post you make gets a lot of likes. However, more and more people are suffering from severe loneliness. Loneliness doesn't come from living alone. Many people feel lonely even with a spouse or in a passionate relationship. When you're feeling down, when you're in a bad mood, you open your friends' contact list and find you have so many friends. But when you want to talk to someone, there's no one. In fact, loneliness is not about physical distance, but mainly about emotional inaccessibility. Loneliness has a surprisingly destructive effect on our health. Many people don't realize that the harm caused by loneliness is no less than that of smoking and can actually reduce our life expectancy. Every cigarette pack has, "Smoking is harmful to your health," printed on it. But what about lonely people? Who knows that they are smoking 2 packs of loneliness, brand cigarettes every day? In many cases, loneliness is temporary and requires no treatment. It will heal on its own. But when we are trapped in loneliness for a long time, treating the trauma caused by loneliness cannot be ignored. Now, let's talk about ways to treat loneliness. Therapy A. Take off the negative colored glasses. Loneliness can generate negative energy in us. When faced with social situations, we panic, lack confidence, and are even pessimistic, assuming in advance that no one will like us, so we retreat further into our shells. Loneliness makes us approach others with caution and suspicion, and our hesitation will surely be perceived by others, causing them to keep their distance from us as well, thus forming a vicious cycle of loneliness. So the first step is to get rid of this persona in advance and tell yourself that people don't dislike you as much as you think. They just don't know you, and maybe they're also hesitating on how to approach you. So why not start with a topic that everyone is interested in? You will find that people will become interested in you through the topic, and then you can also find a compatible person to accompany you out of loneliness. Therapy B. It may sound like a cliche, but it's always effective. Adopt a good friend. The good friend mentioned here is a pet. Don't underestimate the power of pets. We can completely soothe our lonely hearts by adopting a dog or a cat. Humans are strange creatures. Many times, having a companion of your own kind by your side brings you less comfort than an animal that can't speak and can only lick you. Yes, this is a real thing. If your conditions allow, you can experience for yourself how a pet can heal your loneliness. For those who suffer from chronic loneliness, the healing function of pets should not be underestimated. The third emotional crisis, loss of a loved one. We are now going to discuss loss. The loss here refers not only to the loss of a loved one, but also to fighting with your best friend, losing your job, suffering from a chronic illness, and so on. These are all losses. The loss of something beautiful. Loss and trauma are an inevitable part of life. How we piece together our shattered lives determines whether we can fully recover from such events. Before discussing treatment options, it is important to first understand the main harms of loss and trauma. First, they damage our relationships. Second, they subvert our sense of self. So the first thing we need to do is to piece together the shattered fragments of our lives to inspire us to walk out of the overwhelming emotional distress caused by trauma. Regarding this, we still provide 2 therapies. Therapy A. Soothe emotional pain. B. After a trauma occurs, many people suggest not talking about the grief at all. There are also some experts who suggest that the person involved should discuss the details of the trauma as soon as possible. They feel that expressing the course of events and their own feelings can reduce the incidence of post-traumatic stress disorder. Our view is that no matter which view you hold, when a trauma occurs, I suggest you soothe your emotional pain in a way that is comfortable for you, because there is no completely correct way to deal with loss and trauma. If you feel the need to talk, find someone to talk to. If you don't feel the need and prefer to remain silent, then I also support you not to force yourself. Therapy B. Actively recover the lost side of self. In the weeks or months after a traumatic event, Many people will avoid contact with people, places, or activities related to the deceased. However, if this continues, problems will arise. The biggest problem is that important aspects of our lives are cut off, leading to the permanent loss of self. For example, one of the author's client's life changed completely after losing her husband. She used to be very active with her husband, enjoying a social life, often camping and hiking, and actively participating in various activities. But since her husband passed away, she stopped participating in all activities. She wouldn't go even when old friends invited her, avoiding contact with people and things from the past. This abandonment redefined her life and changed her self-identity. The scary thing is that she lost her former self without finding a substitute for these lost parts. As a result, she became more and more miserable day by day. So in this therapy, I suggest that you reorganize your life and realize what you have given up. You either get it back or find new ways to express your identity. Restore your meaningful life roles and let the pain become yesterday. The fourth emotional crisis, guilt. Next, let's talk about guilt. Even the smartest and most emotionally intelligent people can't avoid intentionally or unintentionally offending, hurting, or embarrassing others. Afterwards, they will feel strong guilt. Guilt is much more common than we think. Studies have found that people feel mild guilt for about 2 hours a day and severe guilt for about 3.5 hours a month. In some cases, guilt can last for years or even decades. Guilt may not be as obvious or sharp as loneliness, but it is still a grain of sand in the heart that affects your life. The reason it is harmful is that it reminds us that we have committed an act that violates our personal standards, and thus we feel that we have betrayed ourselves. If this act hurts others, then the uneasy conscience makes us feel uncomfortable whenever we think about it. In this case, we need to initiate a treatment plan. Therapy A. Apologize effectively. In theory, if you have hurt someone, the solution to this guilt is not difficult as long as you sincerely apologize to the victim. But an apology is not as crude as, "Anyway, I apologized," isn't saying, "I'm sorry" enough. An apology should first express regret for what happened and affirm the other person's feelings. Second, it should clearly state, "I'm sorry," and finally, it should ask for forgiveness, all of which need to be conveyed with a sincere attitude. Not, "Oh, what's the big deal? Isn't it just this little thing tonight?" Or, "I was wrong. Don't be so dramatic. I already said I was wrong." Always remember, when apologizing, the most important thing is not what you say, but your sincere attitude. Therapy B is a continuation of Therapy A. Self-forgiveness. Okay, you've apologized, you've tried your best, but the other person still won't forgive you. What now? Or you want to apologize, but you can't contact the victim, or this is a deep-seated guilt from your memory and you can't find the person from back then at all. Then don't wallow in guilt and be unable to extricate yourself. If you can't find the person to seek forgiveness from, then forgive yourself. Self-forgiveness is a process, not a decision. First, you must realize that your self-blame is enough. Excessive guilt is of no avail and will only do more harm than good. So, let bygones be bygones. We have received our inner punishment, and that is enough. Now forget it. The fifth emotional crisis, the feeling of failure. When it comes to the feeling of failure, everyone is familiar with it. From learning to walk and talk, each of us has experienced thousands of failures. Even the most successful people cannot avoid it. Failure can lead to 3 types of psychological trauma. First, we lose confidence in ourselves and feel like we are idiots. Second, we lose our optimism. And third, we get stuck in stress and fear, which makes us afraid to try again in the future. In fact, how we treat failure determines whether our lives are successful and happy. Please remember this sentence. For emotions, failure is equivalent to a cold. If you ignore it, it may heal on its own after a period of time, but it may also turn into pneumonia. At this time, we should open our medical kit to see if there are any treatment methods. Therapy A, find ways to get support. B, after a painful failure, many people tend to seek strong emotional support. I would say this is a very good idea, but I would suggest everyone to go a step further, to objectively analyze the failure. summarize the lessons learned from the failure, and encourage themselves to move on. In many cases, getting emotional support from friends will feel very effective at the time, but it will make you feel worse afterwards, because without the intervention of reason, it is all just an emotional release. Various studies have repeatedly demonstrated that the most effective way to treat the feeling of failure is to summarize the experience and lessons of failure. So after a painful failure, you should proceed from two aspects at the same time: get emotional support and objectively evaluate the experience and lessons of the failure. Only by combining these two aspects can you have the most effective strategy to move on. Therapy B. Focus on the factors you can control. Failure can make us feel depressed and helpless, making us feel that the whole thing is out of our control. This will create an illusion, as if no matter what we do, it will not change the outcome of the matter. Then we will naturally give up our efforts, or only put in limited effort. This is the tragedy of failure. It will make us believe that the reason for our failure is that we have no control. Is there anything more of a failure than this? So what you should do at this time is to change your mindset, focus on the aspects that we can control, and keep our hope, motivation, and self-esteem in a favorable situation. As for those uncontrollable aspects, it's not your fault. Let them go. The sixth emotional crisis: low self-esteem. Now let's talk about low self-esteem. Everyone desires to have high self-esteem, which more or less exposes how common a problem low self-esteem is. People take courses, buy books, and find so-called life mentors for classes, but these methods are basically ineffective. When you have low self-esteem, you still have low self-esteem. A person with low self-esteem is equivalent to having a weak emotional immune system, and any kind of injury can break through the emotional fortress. In addition, compared with people with strong self-esteem, people with low self-esteem are often unhappy, more pessimistic, and lack motivation. Their emotions are very bad, and they may also be depressed, anxious, and anorexic. Our self-esteem often fluctuates and occasionally falls into a short-term low. In this case, emotional first aid is not needed because they recover quite quickly. However, if our self-esteem is often low, or we feel that we cannot stand up for ourselves, this is the time to bring out the treatment plan. Therapy A. You need self-compassion to suppress the voice of self-criticism in your mind. Imagine you see such a scene. Parents with a bad attitude are scolding their child who did poorly on a test, and the child's expression is very sad. When you see this, you will surely secretly vow that you will never abuse your own child in the same way in the future. But when you have low self-esteem, how do you treat yourself? Compared to the parents who abuse their children, your attitude towards yourself is probably even worse. So you have to accept a very simple fact and keep reminding yourself, when you have low self-esteem, when our emotional immune system is weak, we should try to strengthen it, not destroy it. Therapy B. Increase your tolerance for praise. Low self-esteem makes it difficult for us to accept praise and positive energy from others. On the contrary, criticism and negative feedback are more likely to enter our hearts because this will further prove that we are indeed worthless. So when this situation occurs, it is when you should be vigilant. If you cannot accept people's praise and positive affirmation, if you cannot digest all the positive energy, then building a sense of self-worth is out of the question. When you have low self-esteem, you should open your mind to listen to and accept the praise of others. Don't worry about how much truth there is in the praise. You need to use this as a reason to actively reshape your confidence and get out of the trough of low self-esteem as soon as possible. This is the content of emotional first aid. Let's review it again. We all encounter various troubles in life, and it is inevitable that our emotions will be low at times. Many times, emotional lows are temporary and will pass after a period of time. But there are also many times when emotional lows will last for a long time, so that they become a part of our lives like a strained muscle or a damaged internal organ, affecting our quality of life. Therefore, we should take measures to help ourselves. This book provides solutions for the 6 common emotional lows in life. When you are rejected, lonely, grieving, guilty, failing, and have low self-esteem, don't let yourself indulge in negative emotions. You must know that this is not your fault, and you should not let yourself taste the bitter wine of emotions. According to the suggestions of this book, start to actively save yourself and let your mood become sunny again.